Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
Tom, pleasure meeting you again.
Tom, good to see you.
Yeah, it's I've learned so much from you during these classes that you've shared with us and the masterminding and all. So
thank you. Well, since the audience have no idea who the heck I am,
audience.
What's one thing that you've picked up from me that you've used or found valuable?
I think one of the things, you've talked about several things, but I think the last one, whenever you were talking about really how consultants can like drive their business, and I read the same book that you were kind of making references to.
Sure,
but yet you brought it to life with me on it.
Thank you.
Number one. Number two, you kind of challenged us to kind of like figure out how to apply it between now and the next time. Okay,
what you're hinting at is I've been told I have a gift for education, and I'd like to, and I will prove that to the audience here in just a second by educating you and by extension them on my topic of performance improvement plans, which is kind of the thing I'm most focused on these days. But I want to tell you briefly why it is I'm so good. And it's because I was so bad. I grew up with Asperger's syndrome. I guess I still got it. And what that meant for me as a kid was no one made sense to me and I made no sense to them. And the greatest good for me was if someone would, even for a little brief window, understand me. And so the idea of understanding became this golden chalice, this thing to yearn for. And I wanted to be understood, and therefore I had to be clear, and therefore I had to understand where the people were coming from. And this became this muscle that I exercised apparently enough to get really good at understanding complex issues and explaining them to people, a wide variety of people, not just folks who happen to think like me. And that's been my MO, I guess, ever since, is dive deep into the complexity of something and then bring it back to a more general audience who haven't taken the time to dive in. And I don't think I really understand a topic if I can't explain it to a layman. So that's what we could probably do right now with performance improvement plans, if you would be amused by that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great topic to kind of.
And I'll tell you why I picked performance improvement plans. It's the thing that people hate to do, right? They hate to do it. Except for very few people who love doing it, and those people who shouldn't trust around your children. Most of us don't like the confrontation of it. You got to tell somebody, look, Fred, Janice, whoever it is, Chris, if you can't improve your performance, we're going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to have that? Nobody wants to have a conversation, even though this person has been dragging the team down for probably weeks, months. Maybe it's job performance. Maybe it's non-performance related behaviors of being annoying or bothering people or having bad habits that are beyond the pale of what's acceptable in the workplace, let's say. There's all sorts of things that people in the audience say, well, I had to let this guy go once for this, or we had a guy on my team we had to let it. There's a million ways to get fired, but there's only two good reasons to let somebody go. And number one is they can't do their job. And you can't turn them around. You can't help them acquire the skill or get them up to the level you need them at. And number two is if they tear down the team or they're doing something that harms team effectiveness or hurts individuals in the organization. You can't punch customers, for instance. You can't commit crimes. There's a list of stuff you got to do. Yeah, but he brings in the sales. I don't care. It's not enough.
Yeah.
Right? There's a whole bunch of social constructs that we require of people. And so here you are, you're a manager. I'll give you an even worse scenario, actually. You're a manager of managers. And your subordinate manager has a struggling worker, and you need the subordinate manager to step up and put the struggling person on a PIP, and they just won't do it. and you can't reach through them and do it yourself, because then you're undercutting your subordinate manager and you're getting out of your own lane. You need to do your job, let them do theirs. And that, which is, by the way, this is the exact scenario that I created my offering called the PIP Guy. Was like, it's a turnkey solution to get somebody up to par or out the door in 90 days with minimal drama. And what I did is I deconstructed the process to try to take out, like, okay, why do we hate PIPs? Why do people postpone them and delay them and procrastinate on them? And if they do them, they often do very poor ones, which, by the way, is horrifically toxic for the entire team.
Yes.
And I'll explain that in just a second. Like, why are they put off? And we put off PIPs for the same reason. We put off a performance improvement plan confrontation meeting for the same reason that you'll put off, say, fixing the garbage disposal. Because you keep saying to yourself, well, why am I putting it off? It's like, it's only going to be like 20 minutes. It's not that hard, but you don't get started. And finally one day you go, all right, I'm going to do it. I got a Saturday with nothing going on. You get started and it turns into a 6-hour ordeal, right? Because one thing leads to another. You realize, oh, it's not just the disposal. There's something else in there. And oh, it's electrical as well as plumbing. I got to turn the panel off at the breaker box. I can't tell which circuit breaker it is. And I can't even get to the circuit breaker box of all this junk in the garage. And I got to clean out that portion of my garage and make a temporary storage mess to get to the panel. And then it's 20 minutes of like, is it off yet? Click, 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 click. You're yelling across the house to somebody. And then you got to make 2 trips to the hardware store because you need a part and you don't have the right part. You got to get another part. And you're laying on your back with like dirty water dripping in your face for hours. It's horrible. And that's why you didn't get it started, is because as soon as you open the box, you realize, oh my God, there's so much more here than I realized. And that's what stops people from getting into. I'm not making this very attractive, am I? I don't want to. It's not a pleasant activity if you're not prepared. But if you are prepared, they actually can do wonders to improve your leadership skills, to improve the whole rest of your team. Everybody else on the team will be thrilled when you do this right. And even the person you're putting on a PIP might actually be very grateful to you for finally stepping up and doing your job as a manager, which is to champion high performance. So here's what's missing. When you go to have that PIP conversation, we're going to walk backwards. Like, you're about to walk in to have an unpleasant, potentially unpleasant, challenging conversation with Chris, Randy, somebody, to say, you got 60 days to turn your performance around, or we're going to terminate you for cause, for non-performance of your duties. And they're going to say, well, what do you mean? What performance? Where's the standard? Prove it. You never said anything until now. Why are you surprising me? Other people do the same thing I do. You can imagine all the self-justifying excuses, not to mention all the emotional pushback. Okay. And some of those are very legitimate concerns. So what I will walk someone through is start with their job description. If their job description doesn't say specifically what they're supposed to do, such that you can point to their current performance and say, you see, that's them not doing their job. What I'm observing here is Chris not doing Chris's job. If the job description isn't clear enough, you're in trouble. You don't have a good leg to stand on with that. Okay. So number one, you're going to refresh the job description. When you do that, number two, you're going to say, what are the top 3 results or outcomes this role creates? If it's salespeople, it's sales. If it's a busboy, it's cleaning tables and moving dirty dishes to the dishwasher and cleaning dishes to the cook and cleaning the restrooms. It's like a very clear set of tasks. For a manager, it's a little trickier. I could go in detail on that if you like, but there's actually a list of very specific things. A frontline manager or a middle manager has to build team cohesion, take responsibility for results, make sure people are doing their jobs and are improving in their jobs, confronting problem performance and problem behaviors. I've got a list. I actually wrote this under an article on my blog. I'll have to send it to you. But there's a list of specific things that make up this role. And the whole reason you're having a PIP conversation is they're not doing one or more of these things at the level you need. Okay, that's the second problem. The job description, what are the results? The level you need. Did we define that? Okay, you give you a quick cheat sheet here. Everything has a quality, quantity, and time component, most likely. And so if you start by thinking, okay, quality, quantity, time, if I have my list of responsibilities and I have a quality column, a quantity column, and a time column, what words and phrases would I stick in each for each of these areas of result? You know, the busboy, you're going to bus tables. What's the quality? Well, we need some statement of how clean is clean. No crumbs, no smears. Quantity, all the tables in a section all the time. What about time? Well, you should bus a standard table in less than, 2 minutes or something. What's a standard table? Well, we would define that. It's, a four-top with average soiling consisting of blah, blah, blah. It's like there's some work to be done here to build out the definition of like what's good enough. But here's the thing. All the busboys need that, not just the one who's in trouble. All your salespeople need the sales definition. All of your middle managers and frontline managers need to have, here's the list of things a manager must do. That's what it means to be their boss, is to make it clear to them what the organization needs of them. Now, I front-loaded this recently with a client of mine, and you can do this yourself. It's fun. Is you have an all-hands meeting for your group, your team, your department, your division, your company, and you have people grouped by role, and you say, okay, what does it mean to be excellent in this role? Write down some words and phrases. Okay, yeah. Everyone's writing solo. Get them in pairs, have them reduce duplicates and refine things. And then everyone in that role gathers around a flip chart and just throws sticky notes up with concepts of what is excellence. Within 15 minutes, every role has a definition of what they think best in the world, lawyer, best in the world, phlebotomist, best in the world, whatever it is. Like they have an opinion of what excellence is. And it's often beyond what they're currently doing, which is fine. But we're going for like, what's the North Star of awesomeness for you? Okay, now, new page next to that. What are the promises that this role makes to the other roles in the organization and makes to the clients, internal or external clients? And just, you got 10 minutes, write it, TikTok. You can be pretty productive if you have a deadline, right? Mm-hmm. So pretty soon they've got the beginnings of, a busboys promise that they will bus tables, and so the waitress will have a section with at least one clean table in it for the next customer to come to. And that the dishwasher will not have to go hunting for dirty dishes. They will come to the dishwasher. Right. The cooks will not be cooking food and looking around for a clean plate to put the food on and wondering, where I can't get food off the grill. It's like, these are the promises, right? It's part of the workflow. And now on the all hands offsite meeting where everyone's got their little flip chart with, here's our promise. Then each role sends ambassadors out to the other roles and saying, your promises to us here, like the cooks come by and look at the busboys and go, you didn't say this. How about adding this to your promise to us, And the busboys are like, okay. And they're going to go visit the cooks and say, well, how about you promising us a few things, And now you're surfacing what people want from each other to have smooth work and smooth communication. So you can use the whole PIP process to revitalize the working relationships between people and normalize this idea that they can ask each other for what they need and what they want, rather than coming to you saying, I'm not happy with Fred. This is a very healthy dynamic, by the way. And what they give you will be largely a bunch of adjectives. Sometimes people recreate the Boy Scout motto. It's like brave, thrifty, clean, and reverent. It's a list of positive adjectives rather than, I will bus a table within 2 minutes. That's what I'm looking for. They often don't get that the first time around. But you can get some of it. And so you as a leader can orchestrate this process of people coming up with their own definition of excellence, which you now get to hold them to. They have volunteered to say, this is what excellence is. Okay, you guys want to be excellent? Heck yeah. Well, I want you to be excellent too. What can I do to help? How can you tell if you're doing it? Well, the cooks are grumbling about the busboys. So it's good. Well, they made you a promise. Go talk to them. I'll help. I'll facilitate a conversation. Complain directly to each other in the context of, you guys want to be excellent, and excellence means making certain promises to each other. Here are the specific promises. Either the promise isn't a good enough promise, or it's a good enough promise and you're not keeping it. And we just normalize that conversation. Now we are literally talking about performance. You've gone from a culture where people may be a little shy to talk about it. That's totally normal. It's totally open. We're all cool with it. And you led that by making that conversation happen.
Well, and I think
we're part way there. I have one more thing to bring home.
Sure.
And that is, what is your threshold for good enough? There's going to be excellent, good enough, and not good enough. You need those 3 buckets for each of these areas of performance, because the excellent is what you want them to shoot for. Good enough is what keeps them in their job, and not good enough is when you fire them. And you're going to have to define each of those for real, so that you can justify both to yourself and to all the people who didn't get fired, who might be wondering, I will pause and say, you've probably heard of really vague tips, not a team player, that doesn't communicate well, really like vague junk. It's like, prove it's not true. And that's corrosive for multiple reasons. One is it's lazy on your part. You shouldn't be that vague. Number 2, the person's looking at it going, how do I prove I'm not? Like you're not being specific enough. I can't, transcend this. How do I, doesn't communicate well? Okay, what do you want me to do? Get better. How? I'll know it when I see it. Okay, this is just whimsy with a little candy shell veneer of a pip, but it's really just the boss doesn't like Fred, and this is this vague, ungrounded, counterproductive pip is just a cover story. It's a smokescreen for firing him for not liking him. And here's the problem with that, is even if everybody else hates Fred and really wishes Fred would go because Fred is a no good slacker, when you do a lousy pip like that, they wonder, well, what happens if he doesn't like me? I can't prove those same things either. And I promise you the word will get around. The vague pip will bite you in the ass so hard as a manager, and it will undercut people's trust in you because they think that they get to keep their job by being good at their job. And now you come up with a pip that's that vague. It's like, I'm not sure how I'm keeping my job because I can't prove using the vague pip that I'm doing my job or not doing my job. So you've got to get specific. Now, fortunately, there's an awesome book, I wish I had it handy, called How to Measure Anything by Douglas Hubbard.
Okay.
And if you ever start wondering, well, hey, how do I measure blah, so-and-so, you get his book or read someone's summary of his book. It is beautiful in its clarity and simplicity. He says, a measurement is anything that reduces your uncertainty, and everything in business that matters can be measured because everything that matters can be observed. And once you can observe it, it's like, how do you know that Fred is communicating well or badly? Well, people have to come, it's like, write clarifying emails saying, like, what does that mean? Okay, let's count the number of clarifying requests. Oh, that's a metric. Yeah, it is. Is it a perfect one? No. It's a proxy maybe, but it's a start. Or what's another one? Employee engagement. What the heck is that? Well, how would you know if you had awesome employee engagement? Imagine 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, there's very little employee engagement. Scenario 2, there's lots. Thomas Chappell, what might you see in an organization that contrasts these 2 states? What are 1 or 2 things that pop into your head that you might see more of or less of in those 2 scenarios? Absenteeism, HR complaints.
Yeah. Getting calls from DOL, Department of Labor.
Yeah, getting Department of Labor calls. Yeah.
That.
Oh,
not me directly, but through someone else. And I was just attached to it and had to go along for the ride.
Yeah, and then those splash on a lot of people when they happen.
Yes,
it's not a lot of fun. So you get the idea that once you realize, if it matters to me, I'm seeing, if it's a lot of it's over here and very little of it's over there, what will I see? What will I hear? What would be different in those 2 scenarios? And you start to think, well, people would ask proactive questions about how they can do better. And over here, they'll be like asking stupid remedial questions, or they'll be taking long breaks. I got to wonder what people are, and they come in late and leave early. But those are measurable. And so my point here is that when the time comes to do a PIP, what you're really doing is seizing the opportunity to be a proactive manager who truly manages performance and therefore manages the morale of staff and gives them, here's excellent, here's okay, here's what's going to get you fired. You're in the okay, but dude, you could be excellent. Come on, let's get you up there. And people love, according to, I think, was it Simon Sinek? who said that people love, Daniel Pink in Drive. He said people are highly motivated by three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So you got to have a purpose for the organization. You have to have a purpose for the role. The role's got to be clear. Hey, you're the busboy. You make this place clean and you keep things flowing. You are a linchpin to the operation. You are important. We can't give a 5-star experience without a 5-star busboy, and you're it. Oh, wow, I'm important. Okay, that's purpose. Autonomy is, look, I'm not going to come and tell you what to do. I'm going to check in on you periodically, but here's how you can tell if you're doing a good job. There's not a lot of dirty tables. There's not a lot of dirty dishes out there, and there's not a lot of clean dishes back by the dishwasher, right? The clean dishes are all by the cooks, the dirty dishes are all by the dishwasher, and the tables are mostly clean, and every hour you're in the bathroom cleaning something up. That's how you know you're doing awesome, and that's what I would be checking. That's autonomy. And then mastery, that's when you really know how to do it and do it well. And people love those three things. It's wildly motivating.
And I think it gives them something too, right?
Oh,
it gives them something, because if I now bring in a trainee and you've been doing that job, who am I going to turn to? Am I going to do it? No, I'm not the master of it, but you be the master of it.
Yeah. And W. Edwards Deming and the Japanese quality movement, Toyota, will tell you that the person who knows the job truly, deeply, thoroughly, the only one person, that's the worker. The person doing the job knows the job. Their manager kind of sort of knows about the job.
Yeah.
And so that's really, and when you treat people with that kind of respect and accountability, right? Autonomy doesn't mean you do whatever you want to. Autonomy means you are free to do the job, which I, as the boss, have defined for you. And I may have worked with people better than you to come up with the levels of, not good enough, and excellent. And we got one person currently who's in excellent, but I bet you can reach there too. Like that dialogue, that conversation, that creation, is your chance as a manager to fully inhabit your role as someone who drives results. Because you don't drive results by doing other people's jobs for them, but you can do it by unlocking the potential in each person. And what I've just described to you, the PIP process, is actually, when you do it right, unlocking the potential of everybody in the organization, one role at a time, one job description at a time.
So I guess my question would be with this is, the audience is the leadership, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But when leaders are looking for these kind of characteristics and all, and they don't feel confident about it, is there a program or something that, like, if they needed to reach out to you, is there something that they could, because a lot of folks, they just
nobody's
follow
born
HR
knowing
guidelines.
this stuff. Yeah, no one's born knowing this stuff. And God, I hate to say this, but HR is historically, most HR departments are useless when it comes to this.
Yeah.
If you say, hey, I need help on a PIP, they'll send you some generic form to fill out or a template, and it'll say really useless stuff like document their performance. Like, okay, like what? Do I follow them with a video camera? Like, what do you mean document? Like, what performance? Help me out here. And they don't close that gap for you. And that's actually what I do. I have a free consultation. I give people to get them off to get them up to speed and moving. And if they want further help, they can, of course, can buy the PIP Guy package, which works side by side with them, shoulder to shoulder, to get it all done.
Yeah, because I kind of see, like, I've come from an organization where there's, multiple different types of roles. And I mean, it could be, you get into a 200-person company and there's like, there's a baseline of roles, but then underneath it, there's these sub roles that kind of go on too. And I could see where that can kind of like get a little hairy after a while. Oh,
yeah. And if you feel a little bit detached as a manager, or especially as a manager of managers, you're not down at the grassroots. You're not down in the weeds. You can't be. You can't afford to be. Then you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And yet, as a manager, you are responsible 100% for everything that happens or fails to happen in your organization, whether you know about it or not. So this is your opportunity to say, we have a performance problem. I don't understand it properly. I'm going to go talk to the people who do. And you have a structured step-by-step way of talking to the people in that role and their internal customers and the people who interface with them up and downstream in the workflow, and say, what's excellence here? What is it? How would you know if you had? What would you see and hear if the front desk was answering phones flawlessly? And they would say, well, we'd be polite. Okay, polite's a conclusion. It's a vague term. Polite like what? Give me some examples. We'll answer within 2 rings. We answer with the company's name. We always use a polite professional tone of voice. We're upbeat and cheerful. We smile while we talk because we can hear the smile in the voice. And if the caller is upset, we don't get upset back. We greet everyone who comes in the door with a smile and cheerfulness and a sense of welcoming so that they feel glad they came. Like that's the definition I would want.
So I'm going to give you a little challenge.
Please.
Because a lot of my viewers are federal contractor space. And this is something that we deal with every day. Whenever we when we win a piece of work, we have this, it's called, performance work statement, SOW, and it's got all these positions listed in it. And it gives a breakdown of the type of work that's in it. What I and others, because I have to put myself into that group, have been lazy compared to what you've been talking about today, about is that we kind of look at that and say, okay, you're a system engineer and it says you will do this, and this, and all, but it seems
you're
like
describing
that's not deep enough.
You're describing the flaw of most job descriptions.
Yeah.
Most job descriptions talk about the activities you engage in, and that's not what you're looking for. What you need to do is take a page from Peter Drucker, who said that what you really want to understand is, for each role, what contribution do they make to other people's success? And so a systems engineer analyzes systems and writes specifications. Okay, sure. And who consumes those specifications, and how do we know if they're happy? Right? We got to take away this very siloed, I engage in activities, and talk about who am I making happy up and downstream, and how am I working well with them, and how am I cooperating with them and giving them what they want. True story. There was a woman who worked in the laundry facility of a hospital, and they launder sheets and towels by the gazillion. And every day she would spend an hour folding these towels to take up to the nurse's station. And one day she stuck around to ask her internal customer, the nurses, it's like, can I help you put them away? Can I see how you use these things that I'm bringing you? And there's a nurse's aide unfolding every towel and laying it flat in a cupboard. They didn't want them folded. And she said, if I brought them to you flat tomorrow, would that be better? Oh, could you please do that? That would save us so much time. She saved herself an hour a day and saved them an hour a day by taking the time to find out how her internal customer wanted to receive her outputs. And I promise you, the manager shouldn't have to come and be involved in that. There's no SOP for that. You just got to go talk to people and visit them and sit with them and find out, how can I make you even happier? And they will say 2 things. They will say, here's what you can do for me and what took you so long. And you will be the most popular person in that role. And everyone will love you, and everyone will say nice things about you behind your back, because you are helping them solve their problems, which is the definition of you solving yours.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Time flew. That was fun.
Yeah. So I guess what I would ask is,
well, let me ask you one real quick, Tom. I threw a lot of stuff out. What's one takeaway that struck you as new or interesting that you might take action on in the next few weeks or months?
Well, immediately, because I've got some new positions coming up that I didn't have in my company before. So
yes,
7 to be precise.
Right.
So I think I'm going to sit down and really kind of scrub through that PWS, find out those activities and put it in that, the quality, the time and the quantity, or quantity, time, and really kind of look at that. And
and if one of the cells is blank, it's fine. It's just there to prompt you. It's just there to
I think I want to engage them and kind of like get their concept, like you said. I love when people kind of help you solve problems on things like this, because whenever it comes from them, more likely
It's
to be
real.
adopted.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
then
idea.
They don't mind being measured by it if it was their words.
Yeah, usually true.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Great. And by the way, if any of your viewers and listeners are interested in having a free check-in with me, I obviously love the topic. I'd be delighted to talk with anyone about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
To shed some light or answer a question or help somebody through something.
Absolutely. I'm going to put that, your contacts and your download information in there in the links so that we can get it through. And likely there is one that I'm going to kind of like set up the T-ball for it, but I'd like to save it for the next podcast.
Sounds good. I'll be back. If you want me back, I'll be back.
Yes. That is the lifeline that you talked to me about. Because after I said all that other stuff, I was like, while we were talking, I was like, oh yeah, the lifeline, where, you kind of go back and you start reviewing all
the life timeline of one's career arc and personal arc and trying to make sense of one's life. Yeah. And one of the most powerful things for surfacing both your own values and what you should be doing now, what you should be doing next in your life. It's one of my go-to coaching tools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm finding that exercise worthwhile. I'm a little stuck in certain areas, but yeah, we can talk about that later. So,
brilliant.
But listen, I've loved our time together. I would love for you to kind of take us out.
Okay, super. Well, again, I'm Thomas Cox. Very grateful to Thomas Chappell for hosting me here on his podcast. And if you want to talk to somebody about performance, I'm happy to be that person. And I firmly believe that the job of owning and managing the performance of the people reporting to you is your job as a manager. And hardly anybody helps you do that. Hardly anybody teaches you some of the things I've had to learn the hard way. So you're not doing yourself any favors by thinking you either need to figure it out from first principles or through trial and error. There's no shame, and there's a lot of honor in asking for the help you need. And whether that's me or go back and read Peter Drucker, who's a genius, or whatever step is right for you to take, please take it. And commit to being the definition of excellence for the worker. Have a definition of excellence for you too, and live it. That's my call to action to you. You will love your management job even more when you're doing that, and people will love you even more than they do today.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real-life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.